Hey everyone, welcome to the Future of Impact. We are very, very excited about the conversation we are about to have today with Alicia and Steven, the co-founders of Givepact, a free crypto fundraising platform for nonprofits that is on a mission to increase the value of good in the metaverse. And now for some humble bragging, because Steven and I have known each other for a little bit, and I have recently met and connected with Alicia. And so I just want to brag on them just for maybe 30 to 60 seconds. Both of these guys have really impressive backgrounds, leveraging their digital expertise to drive positive outcomes for mission-based organizations, as well as some up-and-comers you may have heard of, like MSNBC.com, President Obama's 2012 re-election campaign, and MTV. In her role as the digital engagement director for the Innocence Project, Alicia drove the organization's exponential audience growth, revenue, and advocacy, including campaigns that helped stop the execution of Melissa Lucio, Purvis Payne, and Rodney Reed. Steven's digital growth agency, Blue Wing, has helped nonprofits, publishers, agencies, and travel companies grow and convert their audiences. I want to thank you guys both so much for being here. Very excited for this conversation. And before we dive in, I would love it if you would be willing to share both of your journeys to becoming the co-founders of Givepact. We know it's never a straight line, and just always love to hear people's stories.
Thanks for having us, Jess. I guess I'll kick off, Alicia, and just share a little bit of my background. Just like you said, founder of a growth marketing agency, Blue Wing. Have run it for 6 years, helping nonprofits and other types of companies with their growth marketing, digital fundraising, and audience development. So that's sort of like my day-to-day background. But Web3 came along, and I sort of seriously started getting into it a couple of years ago in 2020. Sort of with that COVID downshift, you kind of think back on those days when everyone was home. A lot of people were speculating on Robinhood and stuff like that. But for me, I was sort of redrawn to crypto and saw it as like an investment opportunity, and sort of remembered the bubble from 2017 and thought that might come again. So started with just buying some Bitcoin and Ethereum, but slowly realized that there was a lot more going on under the hood. There was DeFi, decentralized finance, that was sort of reinventing how marketplaces and buying and selling tokens worked. Aave was a platform that came out that allowed you to borrow coins on demand in a very seamless way. Then comes along NFTs and DAOs. And at that point, it was like a real breakthrough for me in terms of what crypto was. It went from just a sort of a financial thing to now something that was touching on culture, gaming, music, membership businesses, the creator economy. Like it's much bigger than just finance now. And I think we'll see that play out over the next coming years. We came from the nonprofit background and we, helping our clients fundraise and organize online. And we saw there were so many crypto projects that were layering in a social impact component to their roadmap. A lot of these NFT collections were raising millions of dollars overnight selling NFTs, but contributing 15-20% of that revenue to nonprofits. DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations, which we'll get into a bit more, saw their treasuries explode last year. And they were issuing grants to nonprofits. We have a friend that got a grant from a DAO to start a nonprofit. So we saw these opportunities, and we wanted to make sure that nonprofits didn't miss this wave. And so that's where Givepact came along. Alicia and I are friends from college. We've been close colleagues on a working level for 6 years now, and so we know sort of we do really well sort of working with each other and bouncing ideas off each other, and just started thinking and talking to people about what we could do to help. And so that's sort of the genesis of Givepact. The big thing that jumped out to us was that less than 0.1% of nonprofits are even set up to accept crypto. So we want to build a platform to help nonprofits do that, and that's our starting point. But I don't think it's where we're going to finish. So we'll see where the journey takes us. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Awesome. You're up, Alicia.
Hey, Jess and community, thank you for having us. How did we get to Givepact? We're building technology to help nonprofits receive crypto donations. As you mentioned, I got my digital organizing skills early on the Obama campaign, President Obama's re-election campaign, and then got further into editorial and social media for MSNBC. And then I had a sense of how to build a digital program, but I wanted to do that for something that was really bothering me. And something I thought, man, in my lifetime, I got to help this mass incarceration issue in the US. So goal, something criminal justice reform, and building a digital program based on what I had learned. And then I went to the Innocence Project, where we get people out of prison. It's our 30-year anniversary, and help reform the law to prevent wrongful conviction. I started in 2015, 2 months before Making a Murderer and that was a big spike in attention to our organization. For the last 7 years, have been building a digital experience, but really it's been kind of a makeover, a rebrand of the whole organization, and given it life that I don't think it would have had we not had these digital channels. So together with Steve and a really great team of people, we have grown their audience to millions. We have helped the policy team pass 70 laws to prevent wrongful conviction, helped increase digital fundraising from 1 to 10 million. And then in the best example of what digital community can do, we've been able to lead and stop 3 executions of innocent people faced with a death penalty date. So that led me into what Steve said, which is the opportunity in crypto. I see social impact and Web3 having very similar values of accessibility, community, transparency. And so it just seemed like a prime opportunity to make sure we, a way to accelerate what we're doing already and help other organizations do so. So that's where we got to Givepact.
That's awesome. Thank you guys both for sharing those stories, and just for all the important work that you're doing to just, increase good and scale impact in our world. I imagine that many people who are listening or watching this or kind of seeing the promos for it feel potentially a little overwhelmed. And I'm sure you guys get this all the time in the nonprofit space, which is not historically a very innovative, for a variety of reasons, that there's limitations on being able to really push the boundaries and innovation. How would you explain, you mentioned crypto, we've mentioned Web3. How would you kind of explain, like, what is Web3, both from a social impact standpoint and more broadly, just to kind of level set from here for people to really understand, like, the opportunity and what you guys are doing?
So I think, we generally use crypto and Web3 interchangeably, but I think they are sort of different when you really get down to it. I think crypto sort of encapsulates the technology of, like, blockchain technology. I think, other people who are cryptographers and security people might describe crypto else in a different way, but for the sake of this conversation, we'll describe crypto as sort of like blockchain technology that enables networks like Ethereum and Bitcoin to sort of exist and get hosted by miners and validator nodes, and then process transactions. So just think of like a decentralized database that anyone can use. And these transactions, once they're confirmed on the blockchain, are immutable. So it's very secure, it's very transparent. Anyone can look up the transactions. And that precedent sort of creates a lot of opportunity for Web3 to exist. And so Web3 is generally described as the internet of ownership. Take a step back for a second. Web 1 was sort of like the 90s, the information economy. Think, now the internet came out and anyone could access any information at any time. Think AOL.com homepage, Yahoo homepage, Encyclopedia Britannica, like just the information that you were able to access information whenever you wanted. Web 2 was the era of sort of connectivity or social. So now it went from just like a static website to something like Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, where people are actually posting their own content on these platforms and building, social graphs and publishing, user-generated content, and sort of added this whole layer of interactivity to the internet that we're, very used to today. And then now comes along Web3, and Web3 is, went from read, write, and Web 2 to own. And Web3 is about owning digital assets. I think if you ask millennials or younger, if digital objects are ownable, if it's theoretically possible to own a digital object, I think that's sort of the first like psychological thing you have to sort of get in order to get Web3. Can you own digital things? I personally think yes. Like I think, whether it was like my iTunes collection on my old laptop or playing video games and like unlocking rare items, like that idea of digital ownership resonated with me. And so the question becomes, who should be responsible for custodying these digital assets? And I think, people have sort of lost favor with the big tech companies like Facebook and Google and stuff, and sort of don't trust them as much as they used to. And they're also just very centralized and can basically, pull the rug on anything whenever they want. So the question is like, should I custody my digital assets, maybe the tokens I own or the NFTs I own, with Facebook or Amazon or whatever, or are these better served living on a decentralized protocol that is immutable, nobody can control, but everyone can use and access? And so that decentralized protocol that's not that new either. You think about like email, for example, is a decentralized protocol. Anyone can build on the SMTP or whatever you call it, email protocol, right? And that, if Google shuts down your email account, you can spin up a server at home and run your email server, right? And so yeah, Web3 is about the era of digital ownership, and with that comes a lot of opportunity. You think about, just look at the publishing business, for example. They basically the internet economy sort of fell back into a business model of advertising. Even Facebook, New York Times, whoever it is, this information, since it's basically free and can be copy and pasted, they ran ads to sort of support the business model. And now we're seeing many different types of business models emerge because there's provable digital scarcity online. And so now we're seeing, like, instead of doing an ad supported model, you could launch an NFT collection and only sell 1,000 or 10,000 NFTs, but like get a lot of revenue from that, because people want to own these assets, and when they resell them, you can get royalties and all these cool things. So I think that's sort of how I think about it. Web3 is the internet of ownership, the internet of value.
And then as far as it relates to social impact, again, like, I think that was a great, understanding. And I've, even having been more involved in the space over the number of years, like, still have a hard time because, for many of the, multiple generations that'll be listening to this or that are kind of hearing, about Web3 for the first time, it's like when you lived in a world where a majority of your life was tied to more physical things, or some portion of your life was more tied to physical things, versus the generations that are being born now and over the past 10 years and going into the future, they'll never know of like many things ever being, you laugh about like a kid being like, what's a cassette tape, or what's a CD player, CD, or like, trying to swipe the newspaper or whatever, that wrapping your head around this idea of like the value of that digital assets can have value, and just kind of how you break down those three versions of the web as it relates to social impact. Maybe Alicia, if you could kind of touch on like how Web3, kind of iterates specifically in that space.
Yeah, from an organizational perspective, as Steve mentioned, a big sort of energy out of Web3 has been in response to a Web2 model, which is traditional board of trustees, a couple decision makers, the Zuckerbergs, the Bezos, who have benefited, and no account for those of us with Instagram accounts who have contributed and given data, and there's no ROI for us. I will say, okay, so there's no ROI for us. So a big part of Web3 is, how do we create communal models where I can contribute my time in exchange for coin? I can be part of a community where anyone can join with very specific roadmap and transparent governance. And how do we collectively have a goal? A DAO has come out, this organization of a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, has come out of that model. How do, we can quickly, Steve and I and our friends can collectively have a goal to do a project, put our money in, and it's quicker than getting a grant. So we can quickly come together. We all own a piece of it. We're all responsible. So in that way, Web3 thinks about organizing people differently, with shared value and shared mission. So that's why I say it's similar to social impact. And ultimately, you're trying to rethink of how do you build powerful and meaningful organizations that are not top down, but really mobilized by community decision making, democratic decision making, and on, you know, through these blockchains, you can have, as soon as 50% or more agrees on a decision, the funds get deployed. So similar foundations, and then there's so much capital in the space that, of course, where there's money, there's generosity or a willingness to want to give away money for tax benefits. And then investors are younger, they're, you know, millennials, and they don't just want to give it away for the tax benefits, but because they really want to be a part of something meaningful and give dollars or give their coin to an organization that is doing good work.
So I love this because it solves, like, overnight, in theory, it solves for a lot of things that the nonprofit industry has been facing for a long time, which, like, is it safe to say, like, the analogy that's kind of in my head now is like, it's kind of taking like the benefits of the foundation model, right? Of like kind of aggregating capital and then having some sort of like decision-making process, but then bringing in the benefit of the like crowdfunding, like grassroots, like the people who actually have boots on the ground that understand the issues. Like, I know a lot of the, you know, of our clients, a lot of the people that we speak to in the space for many, you know, decades, there's been a growing frustration over the idea that you mentioned, Alicia, of this kind of top down, like the people who are deciding where and how capital is being deployed to these organizations that are making change in our world don't necessarily, or oftentimes don't reflect the people who are actually, or the issue that's existing that is being solved for. So it kind of sounds like it's this like blend of those two things, that like individual grassroots fundraising hasn't been able to create the scale or the like governance component, and then the old school kind of foundation model has its flaws in that it was created by, you know, different groups of people who aren't necessarily representative of the issues that they're governing over. Is that like a fair kind of analogy, I guess, to pull in? Okay, awesome. So I would love to kind of talk about, like, and maybe you guys can give a couple examples. You touched on some of like some projects you guys have worked on, but if maybe like, you know, if there's a best like example of a specific organization that you guys have worked with to kind of talk about like the future of Web3, the growth of it as it relates specifically to fundraising, just to kind of, you know, the path that I would love to create here is like a broad level of wrap people's heads around this, then talk about that it like really is working. Like, I know that the fear or the hesitancy around this is that people like, is it real? Is this like something, or is this like a coming in the future? So I love, you guys are in it. It's real, it's working. And if you could give some examples around that to kind of showcase, that would be awesome.
There's lots of examples. And there's like, and the examples aren't always the same, right? They're all sort of, there's some where there's like nonprofits doing things on their own. There's things where nonprofits are partnering with organizations. There's ones where unincorporated nonprofits in the form of DAOs are just popping up and doing social impact projects, and they're not maybe still like technically a 501c3. So I think we can talk through a few different examples. I think a couple that come to mind for me, I think one that I think is a great case study is Choice DAO. We did a community call with them about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's on our YouTube. You could watch on demand. We do a Web3 101 the first half, and in the second half, we interview one of the co-founders, Sahara, about the rise of Choice DAO. So Choice DAO, basically, in light of the Roe v. Wade being overturned, put out the goal to raise $1 million over the course of a month, which they're in the middle of doing, and then basically organize the community within the DAO to then sort of be volunteers, essentially. So it's sort of like you take fundraising and you take governance of capital and you take volunteering and you smush it all into one. And now you have this like organization that's sort of firing on all cylinders. So they're raising the money. If you're a member of Choice DAO and you donate to the DAO, you get a token in return, right? And that's what we were talking about earlier. Like, you get a token in return for your donation, and that token allows you to vote on how the funds are ultimately used. So like Alicia said, you sort of you make things now grassroots and bottom up versus top down. It's not like you're just donating to Planned Parenthood, which is a great organization, but they're like a mega corporation basically. And they sort of have their top down system of filtering that money from the top down. This is like community coming together, getting the token in exchange for the donation, now being able to vote on how those funds are used. Another point that Sahar made in the community call was, they have 1,000 at the time. I'm sure there's more now. They had 1,000 active people in the Discord. If they can get 1 hour of volunteering time out of the Discord community, that's 1,000 hours of volunteering a week that they can dedicate towards this cause. And so again, on many different levels, this is just like sort of totally re-envisioning how a typical 501c3 or social impact project would be created and funded and organized. It's just totally different than I think what people are used to. So that's a great example.
Can I ask you one question as
yeah.
it relates to that? Just so how are they plugging in the existing nonprofit ecosystem into the work that they're doing around that issue?
So they may choose to then donate some of the raised funds to a specific nonprofit. So they have like a really strong opinion and like have done a lot of due diligence on the organizations that are 501c3s that they can then donate that $1 million to. So that $1 million can go to mutual aid. It can go directly to people that need to pay for the medical procedure. It can go to 501c3s. It can go back to community members for contributions that they make. Someone can go out and do a research report on something and they can say, okay, we'll give you some of the money there. So it sort of opens up in terms of like the capabilities there. But yeah, 501c3 could say, hey, like Choice DAO, we're doing X, Y, and Z in Missouri. Like we could really use, we would like to apply or submit a proposal to get some of the funding that you've raised. So I'm sure a lot of that $1 million will go directly to 501c3 organizations, either ones that Choice DAO is researched or ones that approach them and say, here's what we're doing and how we can use the money.
Awesome. And then as it relates to, I know we've talked about a bunch, and I would love to kind of get into more of the specifics around it, around this kind of like is that when you're saying this new grant outreach opportunity with crypto philanthropists, are DAOs like where primarily that's living, or are there kind of like, and whether you want to make the analogy as it relates like to the existing, how we look as like foundations, large private donors, small individual donors, or just like a whole new way of thinking about it. I'd love to hear, I don't know if Alicia or whoever wants to touch on that, but just like the new grant outreach opportunity with crypto philanthropists.
Yeah, so I think there is a lot of capital being thrown around. Part of the problem is like you have this idea, you don't think twice about where it's going, but then when it comes down to it, there aren't a lot of roads to give. So those who have done projects and who have these philanthropic ideas, you can raise the money, but how do you get it to the nonprofit? As Steve pointed out, there are 1.5 million nonprofits in the US, and virtually none of them, very few of them have the technology to accept crypto. So that's where we saw Givepact an opportunity to be a hub of trust for donors and nonprofits to learn about the best organizations, but also to allow people to donate to the organizations they care about. So there is an infrastructural need for Givepact. There are a few other competitors in the space, which is great. But ultimately, you can't really give to your local organization right now. But yes, I do think a DAO is a great way to accumulate money quickly, which will go to run the DAO, and then you could give some to charity. And then because, in the height of the market in the past year, people making $20 million off an NFT drop, there is a lot of benevolence among these artists, and especially among Ethereum investors, where they want to put that, especially in the pandemic, in a war, there's all these needs to do good, and they're thinking about, okay, let's set aside 5% of the royalties or 15% of the royalties to projects we care about. Artbox is an example. They give 15 to 25% of the royalties of the NFT sale to a project of their choosing. And these are projects that make $20 million. So,
yeah, I was going to ask, like, for context, we're not talking about like little bits of money here. This is like major amounts of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Artbox one is a great example, and I think ties back into your question, Jess, of like, look, this is an industry with a lot of pockets of money, and it's a question of like sort of understanding the landscape and just going after it. It could be a trading firm, it could be a crypto exchange. Coinbase has like a foundation. It could be a DAO, like Choice DAO. It could be an NFT project like Artbox. It could be a crypto whale like Mike Novogratz, who does a lot of criminal justice reform. There's like different personas that, you know, we're helping nonprofits sort of identify in terms of like building that outreach plan for on the grant side. Artbox is a great example because if you're really in the weeds, every single collection they publish, they do a couple a week. On their website, the collection is listed, their upcoming schedule, and the nonprofits that the artist wants to donate to for the release of that project. How many nonprofits are looking at that schedule, identifying the artists associated with it, the ones that are choosing the nonprofits to donate to, and reaching out to cultivate a relationship and say, hey, would you consider donating part of your Artbox proceeds to us? Here's what we're doing. I would guess 0. And we're, you know, that's sort of what we're trying to change, right? We know the landscape and we know where these opportunities lie. Instead of like just letting the crypto community sort of, like Alicia said, benevolent, there are a lot of generous people, but instead of having them just sort of like decide and like really just throw a dart at a dartboard in terms of like who they're supporting, these are opportunities that can now be cultivated. And there's pockets of money and revenue being generated in the many, you know, crypto donations grew 82x last year. I forgot the exact number. I think it was like 4 million in 2020 to 70 or 80 million last year or more. I'm not sure. I should probably have the deck pulled up, but yeah. So like
Either
Artbox
way,
is a great
it's a
example.
lot of
Yeah.
money, people.
It's a
Like,
lot of
pay
money.
attention. This is a lot of money, is
Yeah.
like the takeaway. I have a question. Okay, I have 2 questions. And maybe they like go together. I'm not sure. I'll ask them both, then you just decide. So one would be like, what is the biggest hurt? Like, to me, this is like a no-brainer. So why, if you just went out and promoted this to nonprofits, like, why aren't they all just saying like, sign me up? So that's like 1. Okay. And 2, maybe this feeds into it, is like, what happens? Is there some like fear of volatility, or should there be concern of volatility around like the crypto winter that we're in now? And like this idea of like, you know, it's unlikely that if you were receiving a ton of money from, let's say, the Ford Foundation on like a multi-year, you know, grant, that like they're going to go bankrupt. It's the Ford Foundation, maybe, but unlikely. And do those 2 things play into each other? This kind of like, you know, market volatility of cryptocurrency, and then mixed with like, what is the hurdle that why wouldn't everybody just say yes to this?
Yeah, so just to run back the stats, it's investors are giving 82 times that of the dollar, crypto investors. We took the averages of the existing projects and they're getting 50 to 100K in revenue. The market went up. So all things point to cash. What we're doing is we're making it a no-brainer because we're converting crypto to cash. So you don't have to hold the volatile token. And then in terms of, you know, in the long term, of course, right now, the market isn't doing great, whether it's the NASDAQ or the crypto market. In the long term, we see this is a good time to build, be the first, right? Because we said there's barely none. So be the first, be a part of the experiment. There's no loss for you other than getting a check. You know, it's getting a check versus not getting a check. And then it's also an opportunity for you to get a new generation, a younger generation of donors. In terms of the apprehension, I think it's capacity. You know, a lot of nonprofits have one person doing everything, so they can't think of one more thing. Even, you know, the time it takes to talk to us, and you know that's stressful. So capacity is always an issue. And then back to the why Web3 is cool is, oh, let's talk to the board about it. So you have these old school governance models, or like any decision takes a long time. That's what I see is like the fear of just saying, yeah, we'll be on your wait list because I have to ask all these people who then will write off crypto as, like you're saying, fearful. So I do think there's just an educational need, you know, for us to explain this, try to make it as simple as possible. And like anything new, there's going to be apprehension.
So from a technical perspective, just so I understand, and maybe if anyone's like thinking this as well, like how does the platform, like how does Givepact work as far as like, there's a bunch of people, like, right, there's a bunch of people over here with capital for whatever reason, like you said, Steven, like whatever their persona is, there's a bunch of people over here with capital and they're looking to fund certain things. And then there's these organizations over here, individuals who are solving for those things. What is you mentioned that it like gets converted already. So you kind of solve for some of that volatility and you're talking in like the fiat currency that, let's say, for example, the US dollar. What is how does that flow so that people can wrap their head around, like, are they really just receiving a check? Like, is that really what it is?
Yeah, through our platform, that's right. Look, I mean, 99% of nonprofits, I'll just say a couple points. I mean, 99% of nonprofits don't hold risk assets, period. Unless there's some sort of endowment or something with like a professional team managing it to get, yield on it, then like that's a different story. But 99% of nonprofits, if they get a Facebook stock, a piece of real estate, Bitcoin, whatever it is, like they're going to liquidate it as soon as possible and get into dollars. That's the mandate from the board. And so when you think about the volatility of the crypto market, really at the end of the day, like if you did receive crypto as a donation, whether through our platform or elsewhere, nonprofit would generally convert the dollars anyway. So don't feel like you have to sit on it. That being said, there are arguments for doing so, which I won't get into now. With our platform, the donors would be able to donate crypto, get any sort of tax benefit on the write-off. We are going to partner with a vendor to help us convert the crypto to cash and then wire out that money programmatically to the end nonprofit bank accounts. And obviously our business model is to charge a transaction fee on that. So there's no upfront cost to the donor or nonprofit that use it. There's a transaction fee that the donor essentially pays for when they donate. But the nonprofit is not gonna have to pay anything. They're just gonna get money wired in from us. So yes, it is as simple as giving us just your bank account information and us wiring the money in. Why is that good? If you didn't do that, there are multiple steps that go into accepting crypto donations. So if you want to do it on your own, you would have to set up a Bitcoin and Ethereum wallet or Ethereum wallets, which includes managing a seed phrase. A seed phrase is essentially your password to using that wallet. And if that gets leaked anywhere, or you have an intern go rogue or something, they can then access those funds. And then thirdly, you have to set up an institutional exchange account at Coinbase or Kraken or wherever. So you would have to apply and set up an exchange account, so then you can exchange that crypto to cash and then wire it out to yourself. So either come to us, set up your profile, we wire you the money directly, or you do it on your own, set up your wallet, manage your seed phrase, set up an institutional exchange account, and convert the crypto to cash manually, then wire it out to yourself. So there's a lot of steps that go into that, obviously. You need a competent, curious CEO that's going to figure out how that works, or you come to us, works out of the box.
So the next thing I think that pops into people's heads, and we've seen this a lot with a lot of the especially like through the past 2.5 years with a lot of the tech billionaires giving money in a much more fluid way, right? Like the Mackenzie Scotts and the Jack Dorseys of the world. And the biggest question that comes when organizations that we know get that call of like, hey, ask a few questions, they do a little due diligence, they call them back and say, send us your wire information, is like, what is the reporting requirements going to be? Because we know from a grants perspective with our clients in the traditional channels that there are times where it's not even worth going after the grant for the amount of work that's going to be required to maintain it or to report back to the funder on it. So in this exchange that you're talking about, are there reporting requirements? And if so, who's mandating what those are? And how does that piece work?
Thankfully, we'll handle that for you. So we're incorporating a 501c3 ourselves, which is going to be actually what the donation goes to up front. So the donor comes and they give, and they're actually giving to Givepact Foundation. We handle the tax receipt. So technically the donor's giving to us. We give them a tax receipt so they have their tax write-off. We have the money, and then we wire it to the nonprofit, essentially re-granting it to them. So big plus on the nonprofit side, if you work with us, you will only have one donor that you have to worry about reporting for. That's us. Givepact will tell you how much we gave you during the year and when. You can download a CSV or Excel file. We'll give you visual dashboards, whatever it is. And so it's not like, oh, well, now I accept crypto donations and like there's all these random anonymous people online that are giving. How the hell am I going to report this? It's cash in the bank from Givepact Foundation. Super, super simple reporting.
And all of this, similar to like how foundations and nonprofits exist now, is all in a full, because especially with Web3, I imagine is in a fully transparent, like everything can be seen as far as like how these transactions are coming into you guys and out.
That's right. So we'll have like sort of a donation tracker that shows where the donation is living based on sort of given to us, living in our smart contract, then broken up for the nonprofit, transfer their bank account. Okay, now it's claimable by the nonprofit. They can come in and then wire that money out. Yep.
Awesome. So where are you guys currently in the Givepact like development, you know, kind of like what is accessible to people now? Because I want to like before we, you know, as we kind of like have the next, you know, 10 or 15 minutes to kind of like wrap up the conversation, I would love for people to be able to walk away with like some practical tips to building their Web3 strategy, or like just scratching the surface. Like we just want people to do something. Like this world is not coming, it's here. And like it is solving for so many problems that amazing leaders of incredible organizations have dealt with for decades. And so if you could like break it down into like the simplest, like start here, and then also just like, you know, in that, like, where is Givepact now today and how they could support that? And then like, where is it headed?
So I think there's the framework that we're using for nonprofits that are looking to get into the space is, you know, 3 steps: learn, partner, launch. So you're not gonna become a Web3 expert overnight. It took me 2 years to get, you know, of like nonstop research and homework to get where I am, and I don't know anything. So I'd say, you know, learn, partner, launch. Learn, like I said, we're doing monthly community calls. We're gonna get our next one out soon. But there's one live. Our first one is live on our YouTube. Our website has a wiki full of nonprofit Web3 case studies to help you sort of, you know, like the one like ChoiceDAO and Artbox. We have a list of probably 15 or 20 case studies. I think if you read through them, you'll get a sense of like how this works. New York Times is a great resource, The Latecomer's Guide to Crypto. So they did a really in-depth, you know, beginner's guide that I highly recommend checking out. And then we also have a Discord live, which we may change over to Slack based on community feedback. But long story short, we have a Discord where Alicia and I are accessible 24/7 essentially. So if you have questions, you want to pop in there, come in, go to our website. We have a weekly newsletter that goes out with the top 3 or 4 stories per week in crypto and Web3 that are relevant to the nonprofit industry. So that's a good way to sort of stay up to speed. So there's a lot of resources out there. I think, you know, on the Givepact front, again, we have newsletter, community calls, Discord, and the wiki with case studies and stuff. And then there's a bunch of other resources that we link out to. And so I would start there just with learning. Next thing would be to partner. Again, this is like, you know, you want to set up your donation infrastructure, whatever that looks like. Ideally, you're signing up for the Givepact waitlist and getting on us when we launch later this year. Researching the NFT and DAO and sort of crypto foundation landscape and getting a sense of what's out there. And then incorporating it into your outreach plan. If you find an NFT, if you're an environmental, you know, for example, nonprofit, like look out for NFT projects around the outdoors, right? And like see if there's, you know, reach out and say, hey, would you consider, you know, partnering with us and donating some of your royalties or something like that? So look to partner with existing players in the industry. And the last one is launch. And this is definitely more for more sophisticated, you know, you're a year into your crypto journey sort of thing, or you have a lot of professional help, whether with us or another agency or something like that, or hiring someone internally. And that's when you're thinking, okay, what would it look like for us to actually launch our own NFT collection, for example? You know, New Story is a case study that we throw around a lot because we think it's a really simple and compelling one where they sold 20 NFTs for 2 Ethereum each. So right now that would be about $3,000. And each of those NFTs that was sold funded the construction of a home for a homeless family in Latin America, right? So, and now the donor gets this sort of like piece of art that they can have in their, you know, NFT wallet that represents their participation in that campaign. So that's really like sort of the advanced one of launch of like, what would it look like to launch your own NFT collection? What would it look like to launch a DAO? what it looked like to raise funds and issue donors tokens so they can participate in the governance of those funds. I mean, these are more, again, doing it on your own terms, higher risk, higher reward sort of stuff for more sophisticated organizations. So that's sort of the flow that I would think about, learn, partner, launch. And if you're looking to learn, just come to our website. We have a bunch of great resources.
Awesome. Yeah, I have been on the newsletter and in the Discord and everything since you guys started it. And I have found that it's been it's such a great, like you said, like you guys are doing all the hard work and putting in the hours and all the, time to like disseminate a lot of this information and kind of break it down. So thank you, because it's been very helpful for me, because it's much easier to get caught up when someone's doing the heavy lifting for you. So if people wanted to, you mentioned obviously like joining the Discord. Oh, also, what's Discord for anybody who hears us keep mentioning Discord and then they don't know what it is?
It's Slack, basically. It's like a messaging app, group chat app. For whatever reason, it integrates a little bit better with like Web3 tools like MetaMask. So it's become really popular within the Web3 community. Like every NFT collection has a Discord, every DAO has a Discord. So it's basically like a different version of Slack, used a lot in Web3 communities. Yeah.
Awesome. And then as far as like the future of Givepact, so if anybody has been following you guys, they'll see that you have been all over the place. You guys are crushing it as it relates to like, pitch competitions. I know that you're in you're starting a fundraising round, I believe, but like, I would love to just like, again, to wrap it up with another like humble brag on yourselves, like we started. Can you talk about just some of the things you guys have been doing and like the results you've been getting, putting this out in the world? I think that as it relates to, people can most recently wrap their head around like the kind of like startup tech bubble, like those types of things that happened. And then kind of the companies that came out of it that were there for the long haul. And you guys are getting such great feedback and winning awards and getting such great notoriety. I think it's helpful for people to understand that like, this is a real thing. So if you could like touch on a few of those, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so we submitted to Consensus's startup competition and we're one of 8 teams selected to pitch in person. We went to Texas. I pitched and we won first place out of 120 very strong Web3 companies with product and revenue, and we're pre-revenue and pre-product, but we are building. We have a demo which I could share if you want to give me screen sharing, and we want to launch this fall in time for Giving Tuesday. We have over 60 organizations on the wait list, and we hope you join the wait list, waitlist.givepact.io. And yeah, then winning the pitch competition, we were able to go to Necker Island, which is Richard Branson's private island, and hang out with some great leaders in the Web3 and venture space. We pitched last week at Angeles, and they're a Latino-led angel group in Chicago nationwide. We're applying to, as many different startup incubators and support groups as possible, and taking investor calls several times a day. Ultimately, the big investment here is in the tech and in the legal fees, given that this is all new territory. It's both exciting, but requires a very strong team. So we're just trying to finish the funding so we can finish the product and get you guys donations.
Awesome. I would love it. I just gave you screen share because that would be awesome to get a little sneak peek.
All right, here we go.
This might be an exclusive.
This is an exclusive. You saw it here first.
All right, givepact.io. You get the hard-hitting news. You click on donate now. You go to your organization's page that you want to give to. You see how incredible they are, their impact, who else is donating. And then you click on donate. You connect your MetaMask. You put in the amount of Ethereum. We'll take Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the ERC20 tokens.
And so to clarify, the people that are doing this step are the people who know what all this means. These are like the crypto philanthropists.
These are the
okay,
crypto native donors. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Nonprofits won't have to worry about this. They'll just be able to claim their funds. Yeah.
Awesome.
The point is that it's really simple.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as putting in your credit card on a donation page, but it's crypto. And you get some rewards, you get to collect, show off all the people you donate to, share it with other folks. And yeah, we want to make it, especially to a crypto native audience, super simple for them to give their coins. And we look forward to accepting credit cards as well. So we'll get some non-crypto folks in the door.
That's awesome. And you said, you mentioned it before, but like, just so everyone knows, like this, you want to hear from people. You want people reaching out to you. If there's nonprofits, executives who want to pick your brain, or kind of like even people at a nonprofit who are like maybe leading the marketing team, or they're in the development, in a development position. Like, you guys are super accessible. I mean, I can attest to that. Whenever I write in the Discord, you always write back. So very accessible. This is such an exciting like time in the industry. And I think that it is the technology and kind of the platform that's needed to move some things forward that have been an issue and a real struggle for organizations for decades. And I think it also harnesses the most powerful part of younger generations that, that want to do good in this world and want to, to earn money to make an impact in the world, not, that kind of want to do it all at the same time. So I'm very excited about this. I can't wait to just spread the word, because I think what you guys are doing is awesome. And hopefully this is the 1.0, interview, and we can get you guys back to keep like kind of giving updates as you continue to crush it in the space. If people want to get a hold of the two of you directly, I know you gave a bunch of if you want to just kind of shout out all the different ways that people can connect with you guys.
So our website is givepact.io. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram, give_pact, PACT. And we are our first names, Alicia at givepact.io and Steven at givepact.io.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. This has been wonderful. And for those of you who are tuning into the video or podcast version of this, thank you all for checking us out. You can, this is a weekly show. We are talking to leaders and innovators in the impact space about what the future of impact looks like, whether it is today and tomorrow, or, 10 plus years in the future. So excited for you guys to be a part of this. And, check out all our future episodes and any of our past episodes. We are changing the world, and just can't be more excited for what's ahead for you guys, and to stay a part of it. So thank you both so much, and keep crushing it out there.
Thanks, Jess. Really had a good time chatting about this and appreciate it. Yeah. Everyone who's listening, feel free to reach out. We're here.
Awesome.